Margaret Qualley erased Jack Antonoff from her life with a single keystroke, and the resulting fallout is actively destroying his career. Pristine wedding photos vanished overnight from her social media accounts without a single word of warning. The beach house they shared sits entirely empty right now, leaving industry insiders to watch a toxic marriage unravel in real time. Jack thought he could manipulate the narrative and hide his professional meltdown behind closed doors, but that changed when Margaret pulled the plug. Leaving him stranded at the most important celebrity event of the decade was a calculated move, and the receipts show exactly how the producer ruined his own marriage in less than a year. This is not a temporary break between busy Hollywood stars navigating complicated schedules. The evidence proves Margaret initiated a brutal separation from a man who spent months deceiving the music industry, wiping every trace of him from her life. Deleting those images severed every memory and professional connection they shared, which meant her Instagram grid became a glaring void where his legacy used to be. She did not just leave him quietly in the night. What nobody expected was how thoroughly she would erase his entire existence from her public footprint. August of 2023 saw them standing in front of the world to sign a highly publicized marriage certificate, but less than 12 months later, the facade crashed down in a spectacular display of professional humiliation. July 8th and July 9th brought the ultimate confirmation that the separation was legally binding, with official documents confirming the actress was the one who pulled the ripcord. She demanded an immediate exit from the relationship. Jack Antonoff is now in absolute freefall as he watches his reputation disintegrate before his eyes. The man who built a lucrative empire on playing the sensitive music genius is facing the reality of his actions. These separation reports detonated with devastating precision, hitting the industry exactly when it would cause maximum financial damage. Margaret orchestrated her exit perfectly, and the result was that Jack had absolutely nowhere to hide from the fallout. Receipts prove she took control of the situation before he could spin his habitual web of lies. The real bombshell dropped during Taylor Swift's heavily guarded wedding week, an event supposed to be the ultimate celebration for the inner circle of the music industry. Jack operates deep inside that corporate structure as a co-writer and producer, making his presence at the ceremony mandatory for his continued survival. But he did not walk into that venue holding the hand of his A-list wife. Sweating under the pressure of his crumbling reality, he walked through those doors entirely alone. An empty chair next to him told a devastating story to every powerful executive in the room. Margaret refused to play the supportive wife, while her daily reality was a living nightmare, choosing instead to stay far away from the flashing lights and the forced smiles of the elite guest list. Left to navigate the most high-profile room on earth, Jack watched his marriage actively implode behind the scenes. The contrast was brutal and impossible to ignore. He was supposed to be celebrating loyalty, but the truth is he radiated nothing but failure. The truth is finally out about exactly what happened behind those locked doors, proving the separation was not mutual and the transition was not handled with care. Margaret saw right through his tactics and decided she had enough of his constant deceit, and that is when the age gap between the 31-year-old actress and the 42-year-old producer made terrifying sense. He desperately tried to control her narrative. She outsmarted him at every single professional turn instead. Evidence of his deceit is permanently documented in the physical properties they used to share. 4 months, the industry believed they were living a profitable domestic dream together. But the empty beach house paints a different picture of intense isolation and emotional starvation. Margaret packed her bags and abandoned the curated life they built for the cameras, ensuring Jack was left alone with his ego by not leaving a single asset behind. Property records and moving contracts tell a clear story of a rapid and desperate escape. Jack thought he could keep the facade going solely for the sake of his lucrative corporate connections. He relies entirely on his nice guy image to secure massive producing deals and endless co-writing credits, because his professional survival depends on executives believing he is a stable collaborator. The separation reports detonated a financial bomb directly inside his protected ecosystem. Nobody wants to sign a contract with a man whose own wife just scrubbed him from existence. The receipts were about to go fully public, and the warning signs have been hiding in plain sight all along. Earlier this year, Lena Dunham released a collection of essays that sent shockwaves through the highest levels of the industry. The pages were filled with thinly veiled reflections on her own past relationship with Jack, which naive executives brushed off as ancient history at the time. The text actually contained a direct warning about his capacity for manipulation, and Margaret clearly read between the lines to realize she was trapped in the exact same nightmare. A permanent pattern of his toxic behavior is undeniable when you look at the historical data. Jack intentionally isolates his partners to feed his own deeply rooted insecurities, hiding behind vintage guitars to project a false image of harmless creativity. The actual reality is a calculating machine designed to elevate himself at the expense of the women around him. Margaret finally saw the mask slip permanently. Wasting zero time, she ran for the nearest exits. The financial stakes of this brutal split could not possibly be higher for either party involved. Margaret is Hollywood, royalty carrying the legacy of Andie MacDowell while building a highly profitable empire of her own. She holds multi-million-dollar brand deals with legendary fashion houses like Chanel, making a messy divorce from a manipulator the biggest threat to her financial future. Taking aggressive legal action to sever the ties before the rot could spread to her bank accounts was her only move. Contracts prove she is protecting her assets with ruthless efficiency. Jack is completely out of his depth and rapidly losing his grip on reality right now. Thinking he was the smartest person in the boardroom, he completely underestimated her resolve. His Bleachers output is now being retroactively audited by the label, exposing his lyrics and production as hollow and self-serving. Industry leaders are turning on him rapidly and mapping out the timeline of his deceit. His commercial career is actively melting down, and he has nobody to blame but his own massive ego. The most damning legal evidence was yet to come, rooted deeply in her past experiences. Margaret is no stranger to surviving terrifying situations and escaping dangerous men. Her publicized history with Shia LaBeouf proved she knows exactly how to spot a toxic dynamic and walk away permanently. Surviving that ordeal with her dignity intact meant she learned the exact warning signs of a rapidly sinking ship. Her intense survival instincts kicked into overdrive when Jack started exhibiting those exact same controlling behaviors. She did not hesitate to burn the marriage to the ground to save her own life. The stark contrast between her strength and his total weakness is jarring to watch unfold. While she's out securing new film roles and dominating the global fashion world, he is hiding from the music industry. Separation filings are moving forward with lightning speed, leaving him zero time to mount any kind of legal defense. Hiring the most aggressive attorneys in the business ensured he gets absolutely nothing from the split. Financial documents confirm she is locking him out of her hard-earned fortune permanently. This massive fallout is spreading through the celebrity ecosystem like an unstoppable corporate wildfire. Taylor Swift's inner circle is famous for its fierce loyalty and a zero-tolerance policy for personal betrayal. Jack thought his lucrative position in that group was untouchable regardless of his personal failures, but the optics of him showing up alone to the wedding were a total disaster for his corporate standing. Whispers in the executive suites were deafening, and the final judgment was completely swift. You do not bring toxic divorce energy to the most important day of your biggest client's life. Margaret knew exactly what she was doing by forcing him to face that ruthless crowd entirely alone. It was a calculated and devastating blow to his ego and his carefully maintained professional network. Letting the entire music industry see him for exactly what he truly is was a brilliant maneuver. The empty chair beside him was a significantly louder statement than any high-paid publicist could ever draft. The absolute truth was glaringly obvious to every single powerful person sitting in that room. Destruction of his corporate brand is now well underway across multiple entertainment sectors. For years, Jack used his proximity to powerful women to shield himself from any real professional criticism. He actively leached off their success and claimed their artistic triumphs as his personal victories. Without Margaret standing by his side to validate his existence, the protective shield is completely gone. Industry executives are finally looking closely at his unaided contributions, and the exact results are incredibly embarrassing. Receipts show his solo projects are failing without a female superstar to carry his dead weight. His manipulation tactics have finally caught up with him on a permanent level. Desperately trying to spin the separation as an amicable uncoupling, he hoped to save his precious reputation. He begged his management team to plant positive stories in a frantic attempt to artificially change the narrative. Margaret blocked his pathetic attempts by letting the brutal reality of the deleted photos speak entirely for themselves. You do not quietly uncouple from someone you respect because you erase them from existence when they have deeply betrayed you. The final nail in his corporate coffin was the official timeline leaked directly to the press. Reports from Us Weekly confirmed Margaret initiated the separation without a single moment of hesitation. She did not ask for a temporary break or suggest any form of couples therapy, demanding an immediate end to the legal arrangement tying her to a sinking ship was her only priority. The swiftness of her legal decision proves an unforgivable event occurred behind those locked doors. Details of that betrayal are firmly locked away in sealed legal documents, but the actions speak entirely for themselves. Jack Antonoff is officially a pariah in the corporate world he tried so incredibly hard to conquer. A-list actors and major musicians are permanently distancing themselves from his highly toxic orbit. Nobody wants to be caught in the crossfire of Margaret's justified and calculated revenge tour. Having the entire industry firmly on her side gives her the ultimate high ground. He is defenseless against the legal storm currently destroying his life. The reality of his current situation is bleak and totally irreversible. Sitting alone in an expensive recording studio, he is surrounded by the ghosts of his ruined marriage. The empty beach house stands as a visible monument to his failures as a husband and a man. Every single time he looks at his phone, he sees another major headline confirming his unavoidable downfall. Glitching photos and the scrubbed Instagram grid are a constant reminder that he has been discarded. He tried to play a dangerous game of total control, and he lost absolutely everything in the process. A legal battle brewing just beneath the surface is terrifying for Jack and his shrinking management team. Margaret did not just file a standard separation agreement when she walked away. She unleashed a forensic accounting nightmare upon his entire life. The marriage might have only lasted 11 short months, but the sudden commingling of their assets was a huge vulnerability. Immediately hiring ruthless attorneys, she directed them to tear through his private bank statements and corporate royalty checks. Official legal filings prove beyond any doubt that she is leaving nothing on the table for him to take. Jack is scrambling to protect his deeply hidden and highly questionable financial assets. The man who falsely claims to be motivated purely by high art is actually secretly obsessed with hoarding immense wealth. Margaret's aggressive legal team has unrestricted access to the receipts, which exposes his shady financial maneuvers to the light of day. They quickly discovered hidden corporate accounts and questionable investments he desperately tried to keep off the books. The absolute truth about his massive greed is out in the open permanently, shattering his fake indie darling persona. Tension reached a boiling point when the guarded prenup details finally leaked to the music industry. Before they ever walked down the aisle, Margaret forcefully insisted on an ironclad and impenetrable prenuptial agreement. Jack fought her on it using his classic manipulation tactics to make her feel guilty for protecting herself, claiming true love did not need legal contracts. He tried to gaslight her into leaving her massive fortune unprotected. Margaret stood her ground with total strength, forcing him to sign the exact document that is now sealing his absolute doom. The heavily guarded contract proves he gets zero access to her Chanel money or untouchable film salaries. He actually thought he could find a legal loophole in the complex justice system. When the separation reports initially broke, his expensive legal team searched for any possible way to invalidate the binding agreement. They failed entirely to argue that the suddenness of the split constituted any form of a breach of good faith. The judge threw their desperate arguments out the nearest window. Without a second thought, Margaret is proudly walking away with every penny she ever earned, leaving Jack to pay his own crushing legal fees. The corporate public relations war is entirely one-sided, and Jack is losing, completely brutally. After Margaret permanently deleted the wedding photos, Jack's management team went into unhinged panic mode. They advised him to keep his own photos up to project a fake image of a heartbroken and abandoned husband. He wanted the major executives to feel sorry for him, playing the ultimate victim card to save his lucrative corporate contracts. The permanent reality of the situation completely dismantled his calculated strategy. His fake nice guy facade is torn to absolute shreds. The corporate empire surrounding Taylor Swift has zero tolerance for this terrifying level of toxic behavior. Legal and PR teams retroactively analyzed every professional interaction he ever had with Taylor and Margaret to look for cracks. The exact receipts they uncovered were devastating and entirely undeniable. Quickly finding damaging old interview transcripts, they realized he constantly interrupted Margaret and belittled her accomplishments on the permanent record. Documented evidence entirely proves his massive disrespect was hiding in plain sight the entire time, desperately trying to silence the internal corporate critics was his last move, but the professional backlash was unstoppable. His shrinking team started burying negative reports to fully sanitize his ruined corporate footprint. 4. Every report they killed, 10 more quickly appeared in closed-door executive meetings, loudly calling out his manipulative nature. The total career meltdown was happening live in the highest boardrooms, and he was powerless to stop it. Margaret did not have to say a single word to destroy him, choosing instead to let his own terrifying actions dictate his total ruin. Every Antonoff-produced lyric is now being retroactively mined by ruthless industry executives. The massive corporate machinery is aggressively mapping the entire Swift inner circle to search for massive liabilities tied directly to his toxic behavior. Sensitive financial projections for his upcoming projects are dominated entirely by his unfixable personal failures. His professional output has been permanently tainted by the brutal reality of his deceitful actions. Contracts prove that without a powerful woman to hide behind, his commercial value is completely worthless. His own promoted music has become a radioactive liability for the major record labels. Every time he submits a new Bleachers track, the stressed executives are no longer hearing a creative genius at work. They are hearing the expensive liability of a man who ruined his own life through sheer arrogance. Boardroom audits are tearing apart his latest corporate budgets, exposing the hollow and repetitive nature of his fraudulent sound. Receipts completely show that his solo projects are failing massively across all commercial metrics. Margaret saw this creative and personal bankruptcy clearly long before the rest of the world ever caught on. Accurately realizing his entire fake identity was constructed from the stolen brilliance of successful women, she refused to participate anymore. She refused to let her own shining career become just another cheap prop in his pathetic stage play. The separation reports broke heavily, shattering the massive illusion into a million unrecoverable pieces. The total truth is finally out, and the music industry will never look at him the same way again. The exclusive wedding guest list parlor game is completely over, and Jack lost totally, permanently. Major industry players used to obsess endlessly over his calculated proximity to total power. Now he is the ultimate cautionary tale of exactly what happens when a massive manipulator gets completely exposed. He is entirely radioactive and a walking PR disaster that no smart celebrity will ever touch again. Margaret Qualley permanently deleted him from her grid, and the rest of the corporate world is rapidly following her exact lead. Glitching photos on her curated Instagram grid will forever serve as a permanent monument to his absolute failure.